Okay, so for this second day, I'm actually combining both the second day and the paper all in one because this will go fairly quickly and straightforward. You've done most of these techniques with the exception of the qualitative tests. I'm going to start this out with challenging you to think for just a moment about how you already know from the information you've got, from the appearance of your distillate from that first fractional distillation. What observations let you know that a reaction occurred? So, in other words, how do you know you did not just move unreacted alcohol from the reaction flask over into your graduated cylinder? What has changed? What measures would have been different if that was really the case? Okay. So that's going to be the first part of your write up. So have a moment to think about that. In lab itself, there's a couple other things you would have noticed in terms of smell and texture, but just even from what you have seen here, what is different to let you know that a reaction occurred? Okay. You are going to do a simple distillation. I haven't written it out here. We've covered this before. You have a fairly pure material that you're going to put through a simple distillation and collect anything over 100. So you're obviously excluding any water that may still be in there after the drying step with the drying reagent. And you're going to collect that up to uh, as many milliliters as you can get without it going over 115 degrees. So at that point, you're going to have, again, you'll be doing something very much like you did in the very first simple distillation, where you have a pre-weighed graduated cylinder, collect your distillate, weigh it again, so you have a mass and a volume of your distillate, and then you're going to analyze it in two different ways. So the first way is going to be a qualitative test for the presence of double bonds, and then you're going to also do a GC to identify how many products are there, what the products are, and how many of each there are. The qualitative test, remember, the difference with qualitative tests is it's just asking the question, yes or no, is something there? So this is asking, yes or no, is there a double bond present? There are two different tests that you would be doing. So you would take some of your distillate and you would drip into it some bromine and chloroform. The bromine is a rusty brown color, and as you drip it in, if there is a double bond present, it immediately clears. If there's not a double bond present, it's a fairly intense brown, so it would linger and be notably brown if there was no double bond present. So that is one of the two tests. The other one is putting in potassium permanganate. It is a deep dark purple, like a very dark purple Kool-Aid. And in a similar way, when you drip that in, the product that it forms with a double bonded organic compound is going to come out clear. There's going to be a side product of manganese dioxide. It's kind of a brownish color. So, what you would see in practice is that your reacted double bond will be a clear substance that is lying on top of a really gummy looking brown precipitate. That would be a positive reaction for the presence of a double bond. All it tells you, so remember, qualitative tests, kind of like IR, another qualitative test, it tells you that the double bond is there. It doesn't tell you that there is any particular kind of double bond. It doesn't tell you that there are 18 different compounds all having double bonds or only one having a double bond. You don't know that. All you know is that somewhere within that tube there is a double bond that reacted. So that is the extent of what that qualitative test can tell you. Right? You have a more quantitative measure when you go on to the GC. So we're going to be able to inject a sample of this onto the GC and find out if both products have been made and the relative amounts of each of those. Okay. Remember, with GC, it is only meaningful if you look at it in comparison to standards. So you'll need to go on As You Learn and find those standards and look at your sample So you'll see how many peaks are present. It is going to quantitate the percent of each of the products that are present, and you're going to identify which is which by comparison against those standards. That's really the end of your experiment, other than getting your eventual mass to get your percent yield for the report. Going into the report for the dehydration, let me emphasize this one is going to be worth 200 points, as is the next one. So you've had practice with the hydrolysis report. Use that well, use your feedback well, put that into the report for this. It is actually a fairly simple and straightforward report, so it's a good practice one, but take your time with it. You've had practice now doing headings and abstracts, equations, procedure, and the calculations for this will again be, you don't really have a limiting reagent. The only thing that factors into this is the alcohol, because the only other thing in that reaction was the acid, which is a catalyst. That doesn't get included into calculations for limiting reagent. So based off of how much alcohol went into this, figure out your theoretical yield and your percent yield from the numbers that we will send to you. For your results and discussion, I always like this one because it has a nice logical progression to it. So you start with that paragraph saying, this is how it was obvious that a reaction had occurred, and that there are indications that it occurred in the way we expect, because we expect to get some products with double bonds. You have a way that you tested that. You have an expectation that you have two particular products. You have a way of testing that. You also have an expectation that you have those products in a certain relative amount in major and minor product, and you have a way of testing that. So write that first paragraph just to say what indicates something has happened. Go onwards to the next piece with a qualitative amount saying, now we know that there are double bonds present by this means. So a paragraph about those qualitative tests. What did you observe, and what does that tell you about the products that are made? And don't overstate it. I can't emphasize it enough. Don't overstate what it tells you. And then go on to a physical properties table, because this helps, again, back up that you didn't just move the original alcohol from one place to another without anything reacting. Look at the physical properties of boiling point and density for your starting material, the alcohol, and your products, the two different alkenes. How do you know from that that you've made the product, or you've potentially made the product, because they look so much more like the products than they do like the original starting alcohol? Okay, a little bit of text after that table to discuss that. So physical properties table, alcohol, each of the possible products, their boiling points and densities, along with the boiling point and density of the final distillate, the second day's distillate that you got for comparison. You'll then have a GC table. So it's nice to close with the best data here. GC table should show the standard retention times for the two potential products and the retention times for your material. In the text, talk about what you can interpret from that. What products do you have, which is in the higher amount? And it would be a good place to put whether this follows the prediction made, because the entire point of this report is to talk about the prediction from Zaitsev rule, and does this reaction follow that rule? So it would be appropriate in the GC text to talk about which of the two is in higher amount, and is that the one that was predicted from Zaitsev rule? If there's any discrepancies, there'd be a place for a summary paragraph. If not, you would just go straight on to that conclusion, remembering the goal of the experiment, was it achieved, and restate those percentages of the different products and the yield. Make sure at the end of this that you put in the GC trace. So that should be there. The standards do not need to be there, but the one for the products needs to be included for your report. And that concludes your 4 out of 5 reports. You've got one more to go. You are almost there.